Hi there, all of my beautiful family, friends, coworkers, students, Shmartees, and everybody out there. I'm praying for all of you and your families to stay safe and healthy at this COVID-19 crisis time in the world. And basically, I just want to break down exactly what's going on with this virus in a layman's way, because I'm not an expert. But I want to shine some light on it to hopefully clarify it for you guys. I know that you know this already, but I just want to make it a little bit more simplified and hopefully more understandable. I'm not an expert. My dad and my mom are both scientists. My dad's a physicist, geophysicist, and mathematician. My mom's a chemist, and she has a really strong background in biology. So my whole life I've been raised with science as the way that my family approaches everything. So I want to break down the difference between a virus and bacteria for you, first of all. So bacteria are much larger than viruses. They are living cells, okay? And viruses are tiny, tiny, tiny submicroscopic infectious agents. So the way that a bacteria works, it has a fixed shape, like a puzzle piece. And once they identify what type of bacteria is in your body, they can prescribe the specific antibiotic to combat that specific bacteria. And it fits together like two puzzle pieces. They fit together. So that's how antibiotics and bacteria work. Viruses are so tiny that, first of all, they need an electron microscope to identify them, and huge magnification in order to even be able to see it. And their structure is made up of RNA and DNA, and they have a cap on the outside that's made up of protein. So they don't have the same structure as bacteria, which is why we can't use antibiotics to fight against them, because antibiotics specifically target bacteria, and with viruses, there's nothing to target. It doesn't function in the same way that bacteria does. So we rely solely on our own immune system and our own immunity to fight against viruses. So if your immune system is compromised in any way, if you're old, if you are diabetic, or you have high blood pressure, or any kind of underlying health condition, asthmatic or anything like that, if you're young, if you have a disability that compromises your immune system, or an injury or anything like that, you're at a higher risk when you get infected with a virus. And that's why the elderly are being, oh my God, reduced in number so drastically by this current COVID-19 virus that's taken over the world, right? So let's get into the nitty-gritty of how viruses operate. So let's use a metaphor here. So say this is your cell in your body. This is a healthy living cell. So along comes a virus and infiltrates that living cell. Here is the virus. Boop. Viruses cannot live without a host living cell. In fact, viruses actually can infect bacteria. They're so microscopic. They can infect plants, animals, humans, and microscopic organisms like bacteria. So they are totally tiny, and once they get inside of your cell, they camouflage themselves. They are replicating in there, and they replicate like rabbits or cockroaches. Their number just exponentially increases. So along come the white blood cells, which are the police officers in your body. They're policing all of the highways and the roads and the streets in your body, all of the arteries and the veins and the capillaries. And they're like, is that a good cell or a bad cell? And they're like, that looks like a good cell. And they're tricked. That's how ingenious viruses are. They trick your own body into thinking that it's a healthy cell, because on the outside they camouflage themselves with your living cell. And meanwhile, inside they're replicating like crazy until eventually they replicate so much that they burst out of your cell. They explode out of your cell and they go everywhere in your body. So if we were comparing bacteria to virus, we'd say that bacteria are like elephants and viruses are like ants. And they're just everywhere. And viruses also target a certain part of your body. So this particular coronavirus, the COVID-19, it's called corona because it looks like a little crown on the top. It targets the respiratory system, the lung area, which is why it presents in the type of pneumonia. So once it's there and it's all over the inside of your body, your white blood cells come back and they're like, ew, emergency, emergency. Like they're everywhere. And then they try to form the antibodies because they recognize it's an antigen now. And they're like, antigen, wee. But it might be too late for them to fight against all of them because the virus microbes have basically taken over that part of your body. So hopefully you have a strong immune system and you take your vitamin C and your vitamin D and your zinc and you build up your immunity. You sleep well, you eat well, you're healthy. But even then, there's no guarantee that you won't get a severe case of it and maybe even be hospitalized and need to go on a ventilator. Youth does not necessarily mean that people are not going to get affected by this. Everybody's different. So that's the scary part. There's no cure for it. There are no antibiotics. It's your own immune system. And hopefully, God willing, you're able to fight against that. So how do we combat that? Okay, well, let's get into the transmission part of it first. So this is not an airborne virus. I can't breathe it in, so that's great. It's transmitted through droplets. Droplets from saliva or mucus when people cough or sneeze. So say you are infected, but you don't know you're infected because it takes 5 days for people to start presenting symptoms of it. So for 5 days, you're walking around not knowing you're infected. Maybe you sneeze here, achoo, or you cough there, and little droplets are flying out of your nose and mouth and landing on different surfaces. Maybe a chair handle, or a tabletop, or a counter, or a bookshelf, or whatever. And someone else comes along and touches that same tabletop or countertop. Now they've got the virus on their hand. And if they rub their nose or bite their teeth, like I do, bite their nails, like I do, dangerous, totally bad, or they scratch their eye, the virus has gotten inside of their body. They are now infected as well. It's as easy as that, guys. Or maybe that person, goes to a grocery store and they touch a plastic bottle, or they go on the TTC and they touch the metal bars, the metal poles with their hands on the buses and the subways. Or they go to a park or a playground and they touch the metal rails of the staircases, or the wooden benches, or even their clothes when they're pockets and they brush against a wall. The virus stays on those surfaces for hours, for an extended period of time. The virus doesn't die on those surfaces. Then an unsuspecting person comes and touches that bench and touches that rail and touches those surfaces, and now they have it on their hands. And if they touch anywhere on their face, they get infected too. So these preventative measures of, washing your hands every 15 minutes for 20 seconds with lathered soap in warm water are no joke, man. They're the real deal. And I'm not trying to get you guys paranoid or anything, but I just want you to understand how viruses operate. They're microscopic and they're literally everywhere. So we got to be careful what we do with our hands. So how do we solve this problem of the spread and how do we slow it down? Well, there are two solutions. One is a vaccine. How do vaccines work? Well, vaccines are the dormant form of the virus. And you're basically injecting it into the person, and it has the same RNA and DNA coding and the same protein cap that specific type of virus has. But because it's dormant, you won't get full-blown sick. You won't get sick, really, really infected. It'll just be enough so that those white blood cells will be able to recognize it as a bad guy, as a foreign substance, as an antigen, and go poo, 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 and fight against it and create the antibodies. So now you have the antibodies in your body that recognize that specific antigen, that specific virus, and now you're immune to that virus. You have immunity against that virus. Well, if you don't have vaccines, which is our current situation, we do not have a vaccine for COVID-19, the only other way of combating the spread and transmission is isolation, self-isolation, quarantining, social distancing, and physical distancing. Okay, let's think about it, guys. Imagine if someone is infected and they stay home for the 14-day period of incubation, which is what the doctors have told us is the lifespan of this current virus. And they go through all of the aches and the pains and the fevers and the breathing issues, but they get over it. The virus has now been effectively killed by the antibodies in that person's body. They are no longer contagious. They're no longer infectious. That virus has lost its opportunity to jump from one host to another. It can no longer find another host because it's dead. That person has stayed home for the period of time that's going to kill that virus and stop it in its tracks. No, 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 buddy. We are not allowing you transmission to another host. So in an ideal world, if everybody stayed home for 14 days, all at the same time, simultaneously, for the incubation period, we together would be able to eradicate this virus off of the face of the planet. Of course, this is not an ideal world, and that is not happening. So we have to do the other things that we can. Everybody should wear a mask, even if they think they're not sick. Because it's not about us. We need to be disciplined and a little bit less selfish here. We're not like, oh, I'm not sick, so it doesn't matter. It's not about us. It's about everybody else. So even if we're not sick, wearing that mask can prevent us from getting the droplets in our nose or mouth or whatever. And wearing gloves can prevent us from touching the surfaces that are infected. Or if we are sick and we don't know it, because we're asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic or we have a mild case of it, we are preventing the virus from spreading to other people and from infecting other people and getting other people sick and potentially getting the most vulnerable people in our community sick who could die from this disease. So everybody should be wearing masks and gloves at this point, even if it looks kind of stupid and lame and, you know, we look weird and paranoid and suspicious and whatever. It's not about that right now. The aesthetics aren't important. It's about stopping this virus from spreading and from killing people and from making our community shut down like this. We're trying to stop the spread. And basically, if people use their homemade masks and they don't use the medical ones, that's just as effective. You know, we haven't done mass testing here. We don't know who's sick because we haven't tested the entire country, the entire population. So you could be sick and not even know that you're sick. So just wearing the mask will be so effective in stopping the spread of this virus. And the gloves too. And washing your hands. Guys, together we can totally do this. Think about it. If the virus has no host, if we do not give it a chance to spread, if we do not allow it to be transmitted from one person to another person, if we stop ourselves from infecting each other, we can eradicate this virus. We can help each other to make this virus cease to exist. It will cease to exist. It will die because it's lost the ability to be transmitted. It has no new host to go to, and therefore it will die. So that's it, guys. And I hope that that's a clear explanation of what the health officials have been asking us to do and why they've been asking us to do it and why it's not over the top and it's not an overreaction and it is the only effective method we have available to us now since we don't have a vaccine. So if we all practice that social distancing and the physical distancing, use all of the preventive measures, and do the self-isolation and the quarantining, we can get through this together. We can do it. and this virus will be no more, and we will have beaten it together, and it will cease to exist on the face of this planet. I love you all so much, and I hope that I was able to clarify some things for you guys. God bless you. I'm praying for you all. Please stay safe, healthy, and stay home if you can. And if not, please practice all of the social distancing and physical distancing and preventative measures. God bless you all.